At our high school reunion, my ex announced he was getting married. In the middle of the congratulations, someone piped up. "Hey, where's Ren tonight?" She didn't show. The whole room cracked up. Ren probably still living off the wallet of some wealthy guy. She dumped James for money and now look at him. He's the wealthiest guy in New York. Bet she's kicking herself. Someone snickered. I heard the guy is some grumpy older man. Gosh, how does she even manage that? I broke up with James Thorne the year he loved me the most and walked straight into the arms of another man, a man with money. Now he had a new girlfriend. He'd taken over Thorne Capital, and he was one of New York's most talked about young executives. He'd organized this reunion because he couldn't wait to show off how good his life had turned out. Enough. Drop it. In the middle of the laughter, James spoke up. I have a better life now. Whether Ren is doing well or not has nothing to do with me anymore. What if she really were gone? The room went silent. No way. Someone broke the silence. Ren, she loves her own comfort too much. Don't you remember the fire? James went in to save her. And what did she do? She ran. If it wasn't for Sienna, he wouldn't have made it out. Sienna Shore was James' fiancée. She'd had a crush on him for 3 years in high school, chased him for another 3 in college, and now she'd finally landed him. A sweet ending, really. James' face darkened. Tell her that no matter how much she plays the victim, I'm not seeing her, and I'm sure as hell not forgiving her. His voice was ice. What kind of game was Ren playing now? Had she heard he was getting married, regretted it, and started putting on the heartbroken act? Zoe reached into her bag and pulled out a small, delicate ring. I already saw her. James, she asked me to give this to you before she faded away. When he took it, his fingers froze. It was the ring he'd bought to propose to me the year he graduated from college. Back then, James was chasing the painter's dream and flat out refused to take over the family company. He wanted to make it on his own with me. He'd cut himself off from every dollar the Thorne family offered, and we had nothing. When he proposed, he held up that ring and said, Ren, all I've got right now is you and a heart that'll love you forever. Nothing else. This ring is small and it's nothing fancy, but I worked a whole month to buy it. Once my paintings start selling, I'll get you a real diamond. Deal. I looked down at him. He couldn't hide the love in his eyes, even if he tried. I took the ring, slipped it onto my own finger, and said softly, Okay. He scooped me up and spun me around. Now here he was, staring at the ring with a flat, unreadable face, turning it between his fingers. A long moment later, he dropped it in the trash. Zoe, I know you two are close, but don't run errands for her. I can see exactly what she's doing. She had you bring me this ring, so I'd think about the past and soften up, right? Then she really doesn't know me at all. He said it like he was talking about a stranger. Zoe sighed, pulled out her phone, and opened a video. Honestly, I wish this were just some scheme of hers, too. Her voice was rough. Just watch. The video started playing. It was me cleaning the bathroom in a nightclub. A few months ago, we'd run into each other there. Is that you? What happened to you? What are you doing here? Cleaning up here? From inside the stalls came the sound of loud patrons making a huge mess. Zoe wrinkled her nose, half covered it with her fingers, and didn't bother to hide her disgust. I didn't react because I'd gotten used to it. You disappeared for 2 years. I never thought I'd find you here. Zoe stared openly shocked. Fair enough. I was skin and bones and exhausted. The illness had wrecked my immune system, and my whole body was covered in an angry red rash that itched constantly. Medicine was the only thing keeping it down. I gave her an awkward smile and wiped my dusty hand on the rag. I thought you found yourself a rich backer. Did he cut you off or something? Ren, say something. Do you have any idea what people are saying about you? They're saying you're just after money. That you dumped James and got picked up by some grumpy older rich guy. Is any of it true? I rinsed out the mop. Doesn't matter, I said quietly. Let them say whatever they want as long as James is happy. I bent over and rolled up my sleeves and my wrists came into view, covered in rash and scratch marks. I caught Zoe's stunned look and tried to keep it light. Some rude folks come in and act out. Comes with the job. Ren, are you trying to look pathetic or noble? Which is it? There was nothing but disbelief in her voice. You walked out on him without looking back. James was completely heartbroken over you. He ended up in the ER from total exhaustion more than once. He got so ill and you didn't show up. Not once. I walked over to one of the stalls and opened the door. That was everything I owned. A simple blanket, a change of clothes, a wash basin, a framed photo of my grandmother, and a small jewelry box. Inside the box was the ring, the one that meant everything to me. I looked at Zoe and felt like I was looking at her from another life. I'm not playing noble, and I'm not playing the victim, and there's no rich guy. I've got nowhere else to go. This is where I live. Zoe stepped closer and gasped. After James and I broke up, I couldn't find work anywhere. Eventually, I ended up at this nightclub hired on his cleaning staff. One night, some very pushy guy started bothering me. He wouldn't leave me alone and backed me into a corner. He was huge and I couldn't push him off. Someone got it on the security feed and uploaded it. The caption read, "Nightclub worker kept by a rich sponsor." It hit our high school group chat and blew up. People kept tagging me demanding that I explain. The pressure was suffocating and I couldn't breathe. I left the group chat and deleted all the messages. Why didn't you say something? Why are you hiding? Zoe was almost yelling. I tried to play it off and gave her a small smile. Isn't this perfect though? Now James can really give up on me. She grabbed my arm and I flinched, hissing through my teeth as my brow knotted up. They do this to you. Ran, I'm taking you to James. We're going to tell him right now. The whole thing is a misunderstanding. Do you know how much he's resented you these past 2 years? I shook my head and took a step back. I worked the backrooms of a nightclub and was almost cut off from the outside world. But I wasn't clueless. From all the chatter that passed through that club, I knew exactly how James was doing. His career was thriving. He had a beautiful woman on his arm. We lived in different worlds now, and going back to explain anything didn't mean a thing anymore. Isn't it better if he resents me? I smiled a little. Let him live the rest of his life moving on. Better than carrying me around forever. I have a blood disorder, a serious one. Treatment costs a lot. I'm not going to last much longer, Zoe. Promise me. Don't tell anyone. Zoe's face went grim and her eyes started to fill up. Then something seemed to click. Blood disease. 6 months ago, James got sick too. Some kind of blood disorder. He only made it because somebody donated bone marrow anonymously, and her eyes went huge, like the pieces had just landed. That was you, wasn't it? You were the donor. I gave her a small, gentle smile. When I found out James was sick, I drained every cent I had, got typed through the registry, registered as an anonymous donor, and flew across the country to the matched hospital to go through with the procedure. But it was a long way home. I spiked a fever on the way back, and once I got home, the surgical site got inflamed badly. I had no health insurance. The bills piled up, and I missed the window for proper treatment. After that, my immune system malfunctioned, triggering a string of subsequent health issues. That was also when I saw the news. James had been so moved by Sienna's devotion through his illness that he decided to get engaged to her. I'd already promised myself I wouldn't love him anymore, that I wouldn't step into his life again. But seeing that photo of him with her on his arm and the way he was looking at her, something in me dropped right through the floor. I knew that look. It was the way he used to look at me. I felt the ache hit my chest all over again. Zoe sucked in a sharp breath. How can you not have money for treatment? Didn't James' mother give you a check when you broke up? Did you not cash it? She pulled out her phone. Okay, fine. I won't tell James what's going on with you, but this I can't sit on. They all said you only cared about money and had no loyalty. They said all sorts of awful things about you. Ran, you're my best friend. I'm not letting them talk about you like that. I panicked and grabbed her hand. Don't, I said it quietly. I took the money. James's mother had handed me a check for $500,000 and told me to walk away from her son. I know your grandmother needs money for her treatment. I can help, but there's a condition. I didn't have to think to know what it was. Leave my son. The air went very still. She sat across from me, calmly, picking up her coffee as if none of this mattered. You know Thorn Capital is waiting for him to take over, but all he does is fuss over those impractical paintings. He's going nowhere. You want what's best for him too, don't you? I couldn't breathe and couldn't say a word. I'd always known James had been born into a wealthy family. Thorn Capital had been waiting for him since the day he was born, but he didn't want business. He wanted to paint. After college, he cut every tie with the family company and threw himself into his art. He was new and nobody was betting on him yet. His apartment was stacked with canvases and most of them never sold. I'd told him I'd wait. I'd wait until the day he made it. Then my grandmother took a turn. She needed intense medical care immediately. She'd raised me. My parents were always working somewhere far away, barely home, and it was always just her and me. I couldn't lose her. James couldn't bear to see me like that, and he sold off all his favorite paintings, deeply discounted, just to scrape together her first round of treatment. But there was a second round coming and a third. I couldn't wait anymore. He hadn't given up on his dream, and I couldn't be the one to make him. But on my own, I couldn't save her. I sat there looking at that check, my fingertips shaking. I want you to take this money and leave him immediately. I want him to see that without money, dreams don't always survive. That's the only way he'll take Thorn Capital willingly. I nodded. My heart was aching. You never told James any of this? Uh-huh. I closed my eyes. I promised his mother. I had to keep it quiet. But well, I sighed and looked over at my grandmother's photo. Grandma, her treatment came too late, and she was already so old, so fragile. After a few rounds, she passed. My head dropped. I lost the last person I had in the world. What about the rest of the money? Wasn't there enough left for your treatment? I shook my head. The rest? I used to buy back every painting James had sold off. All of them. I paid above market and donated them to a museum. I didn't want to owe him too much. There were maybe $10,000 left. I donated it to a children's education charity. Those kids needed it more than I did. After that, Zoe started coming by every few days. She brought food, vitamins, and clean clothes. Later, she said she'd found me a quiet little place to rent. It was out of the way, but anything was better than living in a nightclub utility room. I was grateful, but I said no. I was getting weaker, and the ache was getting worse. I knew I didn't have long. I didn't want to leave too many debts behind in the time I had left. I couldn't pay them back anymore. One stormy night, the manager found me fainted in the cleaning closet. The hospital tracked down the only contact I had, Zoe. After the urgent care, the doctor came out of the room and shook his head at Zoe. Our department knows Ren's case well. She's the one who stepped back. She had a last shot. There was a donor lined up and she offered it to someone else, letting an 8-year-old girl have it instead. While the doctor was talking, a small girl in a face mask peeked over at us, looking nervous. Doctor, is Ren going to be okay? Zoe didn't answer. Just reached out and gently smoothed the girl's hair. Back in the room, the doctor told me I didn't have many days left. Whatever I wanted to do, I should do it. By the time Zoe came in, I was already drifting and saying things that didn't make complete sense, but I could hear myself. James. James, please. Zoe got it immediately and pressed the phone into my hand. Ren, do you want to call James? I'll dial. He picked up almost right away. It's Ren. Just those 2 words took everything I had. Silence on the other end. Then his voice came through. Ren, why are you calling me? Where's your rich backer? You miss me? Regret it now? The chill was there, but underneath it, something probing. I was so weak. My lips trembled and I couldn't get anything out. He spoke again. What did I hit it on the nose? Ren, I have a girlfriend and I'm getting married. So, even if you do regret it, I'm not coming back. We're not happening. This is your choice, isn't it? I felt my mouth pull into a small, weak smile. I don't regret it. Be happy. I forced my voice flat and tried to sound okay, but he caught it instantly. What's wrong? Are you sick? Why do you sound like that? I didn't answer. The silence stretched between us, and I could hear him breathing on the other end. That was always how James was. He didn't feel quiet with noise. He waited. Even now, after everything, even when he hated me, he still waited. Ren, just my name, 1 syllable. But the way he said it, careful and low, like he was setting something fragile down on a glass shelf. I felt it move through my chest like a current. My fingers tightened on the phone. I was so tired. The kind of tired that sits in your bones and doesn't leave no matter how long you sleep. I'm fine, I said. My voice came out thinner than I meant it to. I just wanted to hear your voice. One more time. More silence, then quieter. One more time. What does that mean? I didn't answer that either. Zoe was watching me from the corner of the room. Her hands were pressed together in her lap, and she looked like she was trying very hard not to fall apart. The small girl, Maya, the one the doctor had introduced, was sitting beside her, still in her face mask, her little legs dangling off the chair. She was watching me too. Kids always know. They pick up on things adults spend years teaching themselves not to notice. James, I said, I called to say I'm sorry. A sharp breath from the other end. Sorry. He repeated it like the word didn't fit in his mouth. For what exactly? For leaving? For the money? For 2 years of silence? Pick one, Ren. Because I have a whole list. For all of it, I said, but mostly for the painting. That stopped him. I knew it would. There was one painting he never talked about. Not in any interview, not in any of the profiles that got written about him after Thorn Capital started making headlines and journalists started combing through his past looking for the origin story. One painting he'd never cataloged, never priced, never offered for sale. It was the last one he ever made before he gave up the artist's life entirely and walked through the doors of his family's company. He'd painted it the night I left. I knew because Zoe had told me 6 months later when I was already far enough gone that the information couldn't reach anything vital in me anymore. He'd painted through the night, finished it by dawn, then he'd wrapped it, walked into the Thorn Capital offices for the first time in his adult life, and never picked up a brush again. The painting was of me, not my face, just my back. The way I looked walking out of his apartment that last morning, coat on, bag over my shoulder, not turning around. He titled it in pencil on the back of the canvas. 2 words. He never told anyone what they said, but Zoe had seen them once by accident when she helped him move the canvas to a safer wall. Still her. I'd cried for a week when she told me. I was cleaning restrooms at a nightclub by then, and I cried quietly into the mop bucket so no one would hear me. The painting, James said. His voice had changed. Something in it had dropped, gone softer, and more dangerous at the same time. How do you know about the painting? I never, he stopped. Zoe, don't be angry with her, I said. She loves you. She's always loved you. She just loves me too. And it puts her in a terrible position.
Ren.
His voice cracked slightly on the second syllable. He caught it, tightened up. Why does it sound like you're saying goodbye? I looked at the ceiling. The hospital fluorescents were very bright. Too bright. The kind of light that makes everything look clinical and final. I'm not saying goodbye, I said. I'm saying sorry. There's a difference. Is there? He didn't sound convinced because from where I'm standing, the last time you said sorry to me, you were already halfway out the door. That was fair. I didn't argue it. He exhaled hard. Where are you? It doesn't matter. Ren, it doesn't matter, James. I said it gently. I'm calling because I needed you to know that everything I did it because I wanted good things for you. I know you don't believe that. I know what it looked like from the outside. I know what everyone said. I know what you thought, but it's the truth. Every single decision I made it because I wanted you to be okay. I paused to breathe. It took more effort than it should have. And you're okay. You're better than okay. You're exactly where you should be. A long pause. You donated the marrow. It wasn't a question. His voice was very flat, very controlled in the way that people get when they're holding something heavy with both hands and don't want anyone to see them shaking. Didn't you? I didn't answer. 6 months ago, he said slowly. I was sick. I almost didn't make it. And then out of nowhere, there was a match. An anonymous match. The hospital said the donor had traveled from out of state. They said the donor had waived any right to contact. He stopped, started again. It was you, James. It was you. Louder now. Not a question anymore. A conclusion. And that's why you look like this. Zoe said she saw you a few months ago. She said you looked. His voice broke completely, and he didn't try to fix it this time. She said you looked like you were disappearing. I heard something that might have been him moving. A door, a chair, the sound of a room rearranging itself around him as he tried to figure out where to put his body, while this information rearranged everything else. Tell me where you are. Low and direct. The voice he used when he was serious. The voice that used to make me feel like the safest person on earth. Right now, tell me. I can't, Ren. So help me, James. I stopped him. Soft but firm. Please don't come. Please don't make this harder than it already is. You have Sienna. You have the company. You have a whole life that is finally going in the right direction. And you worked for it. You earned it. I watched you earn it from a place you'll never know about. And I was so proud of you I could barely stand it. My throat was closing up. I swallowed against it. Don't blow that up because of me. I'm not worth it. That, he said, his voice very quiet, and is the most idiotic thing you've ever said to me. And you once told me Van Gogh was overrated. I laughed. It hurt. Real laughter always hurt now. The muscles in my midsection pulling against the incision that never fully healed. But it was real. And it was warm. And it was the most human I'd felt in weeks. He is a little overrated. I managed. Ren, not angry anymore, not cold, just James. Just the boy who had spun me around in his apartment while holding a ring he'd worked a whole month to buy. I've spent 2 years being so angry at you that some days it was the only thing keeping me going. You know what I realized when I found out about the marrow? He paused. I realized I'd been using the anger because the alternative was too big to look at directly. I waited. The alternative was that maybe you never stopped loving me either, he said. And if that was true, then none of this, not a single second of the last 2 years had to happen this way. The monitor beside me gave a soft beep, then another. Maya looked up at it, and Zoe gently put her hand over the girl's. I need you to listen to me very carefully, James said, and his voice was different now, precise and deliberate in a way I recognized. He was thinking. He was already 3 steps ahead, working the problem. He'd always been like that underneath the paint-stained shirts and the dreamer's eyes. He was always, and underneath everything, a thorn. I'm going to find out which hospital you're in. I know you know I can find out. I have resources now, and I will use every single one of them. My heart caught. And when I find you, he continued, we are going to talk. Not through Zoe, not through old rings and trash cans, face to face. And you are going to look me in the eye and tell me there is nothing left between us. Can you do that? I opened my mouth. The monitor beeped again. And then it did not stop. The next thing I knew, there were hands and voices, and the sharp bright ceiling moving above me as the bed wheeled fast through a corridor. I didn't lose consciousness entirely. I floated in and out of it the way you do when your body is running on reserves it doesn't actually have. I could hear the nurses talking above me in clipped efficient sentences. I could feel the cold sting of something going into my arm. I could hear faintly and from what sounded like very far away Zoe calling my name. And then I heard, even fainter, the sound of James still on the phone, saying my name over and over into the receiver that had fallen from my hand onto the pillow beside me.
Ren, ren, ren.
Like he was trying to pull me back just by saying it enough times. I wanted to tell him it wouldn't work that way. I wanted to tell him that I'd been sliding toward this for a long time and that there was a kind of peace in it. Actually, a kind of letting go that wasn't as frightening as I'd always imagined it would be. But I couldn't get words out. And so I just listened to him say my name until the medication pulled me down into something dark and quiet. I woke up at 4 in the morning. The room was dim. The monitor was steady. My left hand had a new 4-line tape to it. And someone had tucked the blanket up to my shoulders with the specific care of a person who had done it more than once while I was sleeping. Zoe was in the chair beside me, asleep, her head tilted against her own shoulder at an angle that was going to hurt when she woke up. Maya was gone, sent home probably. She was a sick kid herself, still in treatment. She couldn't be up all night. I looked at the ceiling for a while. Then I looked at my hand. Someone had placed the ring on the small table beside my bed. Not on my finger, just there, present. I thought about James finding the hospital. I thought about how long it would take him. He had resources, he'd said. He had people who could make calls. With enough money and the right pressure, The anonymity I'd built so carefully could come apart in hours. I had at best a few hours. I sat up slowly. Everything ached. The incision pulled. I pressed my lips together and breathed through it and waited for the dizziness to pass. Then I reached for the ring. I held it up in the low light. It was a simple thing. A thin band, a small stone. The kind of ring that a young man buys when he loves someone more than he loves comfort. When he loves someone enough to be embarrassed by what he can afford and ask for her hand anyway. I'd worn it for 1 year before I gave it back. In all the years since, I hadn't been able to part with it. I set it back down. I was still looking at it when the door opened. It wasn't Zoe. It wasn't a nurse. It was Dr. Ellison, head of hematology at this hospital. The doctor who had treated me since the beginning, who knew my case better than anyone. She was in her civilian clothes, a coat over her pajamas, her hair not yet done, which meant she'd come in specifically in the middle of the night for a reason that wasn't her regular shift. She pulled up a chair and sat down without turning on the overhead light. "You scared us tonight," she said. "I scared myself," I admitted. She looked at me for a long moment. Dr. Ellison was in her 50s, small and precise, the kind of woman who measured every word before she let it out. She'd been the one to tell me 8 months ago that my window for the matched donor procedure was closing. She'd been the one 6 months ago to confirm that I had given my match to Maya instead. She hadn't argued with me. She'd filed the paperwork, held my hand for exactly 10 seconds, and then walked out and cried in the hallway where she thought I couldn't see. "There's been a development," she said. I waited. "I received a call tonight at midnight." She folded her hands in her lap. "From the Thorn Foundation." My stomach dropped. "They're establishing a new funding initiative for rare blood disorder research," she continued in the careful, measured tone she used when she was delivering information she knew was going to land hard. "Effective immediately, substantial, the kind of funding that changes what options look like for patients in situations like yours." She paused. "They've also separately made an inquiry about a specific patient under my care, an anonymous inquiry framed as a general question about treatment possibilities for a hypothetical case that matched your profile very precisely." I closed my eyes. "He found me," I said. "He found you," she confirmed. The room was very quiet. Outside, a cart rolled past in the hallway. Zoe shifted in her sleep and resettled. "He can't force treatment," I said. "No," Dr. Ellison agreed. "He can't." But she reached into her coat pocket and set a folder on the bedside table. "A team out of Geneva published a study 4 weeks ago. New protocol for cases with your specific markers. The results were significant. I've been trying to get you to look at this for a month. You've declined every time I've brought it up because it requires a donor. I said a specific type of match. I don't have one." "You didn't," she said. "As of 11 o'clock tonight, the registry flagged a new match. A volunteer typed and cleared." She held my gaze. "Whoever made those midnight calls to the Thorn Foundation also, it appears, made some calls to the International Donor Registry." I stared at her. "Ren," she said quietly without pressure. "I am your doctor. Whatever you decide, I will respect it. But I need you to understand that this is a different conversation than the one we've been having for the last 8 months. The conversation we've been having was about time. This conversation is about choice." I looked down at my hands. The rash was angrier tonight than it had been in weeks. My immune system fighting itself, losing the argument one day at a time. I thought about James 3 steps ahead, working the problem, using every resource he had. I thought about him in his office at midnight making calls, pulling strings, moving pieces on a board I hadn't even known I was still playing on. I thought about a painting called Still Her. And then I thought about something I hadn't let myself think about in a very long time. What it would feel like to stay. Not for him. I wasn't going to let myself say it was for him. But the truth, the one I'd been folding smaller and smaller and pressing into a corner of myself where I didn't have to look at it, was that I was not actually ready. I had told myself I was. I had built the whole architecture of these last 2 years around the idea that I was making peace with it, doing my accounting, settling my debts, making sure I left things as clean as I could. But I was not ready. I was 26 years old and I was not ready. And the only reason I had convinced myself I was is because it was easier than wanting something I didn't think I deserved. I picked up the ring from the table. I held it for a long moment. Then, for the first time in 8 years, I slipped it onto my own finger. It still fit. Dr. Ellison watched me do it. She didn't say anything. She just opened the folder and smoothed the first page flat and turned on the small bedside lamp so I could read. Outside, the hospital was quiet. The city beyond the window was doing what it always did, breathing, moving, keeping on. I had walked away from everything once because I thought love wasn't supposed to cost the other person this much. I had spent 2 years paying debts I'd invented for myself. But here was the thing no one had told me. The thing I was only now beginning to understand as I sat in that dim room reading the words that might mean I had more time than I'd thought. James Thorne had never asked me to pay them. He'd asked me to stay, and I had told myself over and over and over again for 2 full years that leaving was the kindest thing I could do. But what if the kindest thing and the right thing had never been the same? I turned the page. I started to read. By morning, I had signed the treatment consent forms. Dr. Ellison took them without ceremony, tucked them under her arm, and said only, "Good." Then she left to start making arrangements. That was the thing I respected most about her. She never made a moment bigger than it needed to be. She just moved forward. Zoe woke up an hour later with a cramp in her neck and tears already forming before she was fully conscious. The way people cry when they've been holding it in their sleep. She saw me sitting up, ring on my finger, folder in my lap, and she went very still. "You're going to try," she said. "I'm going to try," I said. She crossed the room and hugged me so hard the foreline pulled. I didn't tell her it hurt. I just held on. James arrived at 9:47 in the morning. I know the exact time because I was watching the door and I had told myself I wasn't watching the door. And the clock on the wall caught my eye at the precise moment the handle turned. He looked the way people look when they've been awake all night running on something that isn't quite adrenaline but functions similarly. Coat wrinkled, jaw set, eyes scanning the room in the first half second, finding me and then not moving from me. He was also, I noticed, still as unreasonably composed as he had always been in the moments that mattered most. James Thorne did not fall apart in public. He saved that for canvas and paint, and he didn't even do that anymore. Sienna was not with him. He crossed the room and stopped at the foot of the bed. We looked at each other. "You look terrible," he said. "You look tired," I said. "I've been on the phone since midnight." "I know, Dr. Ellison told me." Something moved across his face. He pulled the chair close to the bed and sat down, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, hands clasped. The same posture he used to take when he was working through a composition, when he was trying to figure out what a painting needed and hadn't found the answer yet. "Why didn't you tell me you were sick?" he asked. Not accusation, just the question, direct and quiet. "Because it wasn't your problem to carry. That," he said evenly, "was never your decision to make." I looked at my hands. "Your mother gave me that money so you would take over the company. It worked. You took it over. You're good at it. Better than you were ever going to be at fighting galleries for wall space." I loved painting. "I know. I loved you more." He said it plainly without drama. The same way he'd once held up a small ring in a paint-stained apartment. Just the fact of it, offered without condition. "You should have trusted me with the truth. All of it. The money, your grandmother, the illness, any of it. You would have given everything up." I said, "You would have dropped the company, drained the accounts, turned yourself inside out trying to fix it." "James, I know you." "Yes," he said, "you do. So you also know that I would have considered that a privilege, not a burden." He exhaled slowly. "You spent 2 years protecting me from something I never asked to be protected from." The monitor beeped softly. Outside in the hallway, someone laughed at something brief and ordinary. The sound of the world continuing regardless. "I bought your paintings back," I said quietly. "All of them? The ones you sold off cheap when my grandmother got sick." I tracked everyone down and paid above market and donated them to the Harwick Museum. They're in the permanent collection. He was very still. "I didn't want to owe you more than I already did," I said. "And I didn't want them sitting in strangers' houses where nobody knew what they meant." His jaw tightened once, loosened. He looked at a point somewhere past my shoulder for a long moment, and I watched him absorb it the way he absorbed everything that hit him too hard. Slowly and without letting it show completely. Then he reached out and covered my hand with his. The hand with the ring, he looked down at it. His thumb moved across the band once, light and deliberate. You kept it, he said. I kept it, I said. He didn't say anything else for a while. He didn't need to. The room was quiet in the way rooms get quiet when two people have finally stopped talking around the thing and are sitting directly inside it instead. Then, without lifting his eyes from the ring, he said, "When does treatment start?" "End of the week," I said. "If the donor confirms, they'll confirm," he said with the flat certainty of a man who has already made a call to ensure it. I almost smiled. "James, rest," I said. He settled back in the chair, coat still on like he had no intention of going anywhere. "I'll be here." I looked at him for a moment. Then I leaned back against the pillow and closed my eyes. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel like I was disappearing. I felt very quietly like I was still here. The treatment worked, not immediately and not without cost. There were 2 weeks where it got worse before it got better, where my body fought the new cells like they were invaders instead of salvation. Dr. Ellison had warned me it would happen. James sat through all of it. He rearranged his schedule in ways I only found out about later through Zoe, who told me without being asked because she thought I deserved to know. Board meetings pushed, calls rerouted. Sienna, she said carefully, had not taken it well. He had ended the engagement quietly 3 days after he found me. I didn't ask him about it. He didn't offer. Some things don't require a full accounting. By the 5th week, my numbers were moving in the right direction. By the 8th, Dr. Ellison used the word responding in a tone that meant something real. By the 3rd month, she used the word remarkable and then looked briefly surprised at herself like she hadn't meant to say it out loud. I cried in the bathroom afterward alone for about 10 minutes. Then I washed my face and went back out. The reunion crowd found out in pieces. First, someone spotted James at the hospital. Then someone else connected it to me. Then Zoe, who had been patient for 3 months and was now entirely out of patience, told the group chat everything. Not cruelly, just completely. The marrow donation, the nightclub, the paintings, the money I'd used to buy them back and give them away, the promise I'd made to his mother and kept for 2 years at the cost of everything I had. The group chat went very quiet. The woman who had laughed loudest at the reunion, the one who said I loved my own comfort too much, sent a long private message to Zoe. Zoe forwarded it to me without comment. It was an apology, a real one, the kind that doesn't make excuses, that just says, "I was wrong and I am sorry." I read it twice. Then I put my phone down and looked out the window for a while. I didn't respond, not because I was cruel, but because I had spent so long needing nothing from those people that I had genuinely stopped needing anything from them. There was no satisfaction in their regret. There was no wound left for it to solve. It simply was what it was. James' mother called me once. She didn't apologize either. She wasn't that kind of woman. But she said in her precise and measured way, "You kept your promise." I didn't expect that. A pause. I also didn't expect the paintings. Another pause. Longer. James is happy. Whatever I think about the circumstances, I can see that he is happy. She hung up without saying goodbye. I counted that as peace. 8 months after I signed those consent forms in the middle of the night, James took me to the Harwick Museum. It was a Tuesday quiet, the kind of weekday afternoon when museums belong to retired couples and school trips and people who needed somewhere beautiful to be alone. We walked through the permanent collection slowly. He didn't say much. He never said much in front of paintings. He just looked. We turned a corner and there they were. All 31 of them hung together in a room that the museum had arranged with care chronologically so you could watch the work develop across the walls. There was a small placard on the entry panel. Works by James Thorne donated by an anonymous benefactor. He stood in the doorway for a long moment. I watched him look at his own work the way you look at something you thought was gone. The way you look when you realize that the part of yourself you buried in order to survive had been somewhere safe the whole time waiting. He didn't say anything for a long while. Then quietly, "You gave up your treatment money for this." "Yes, Ren. I know." He turned to look at me. The light in the room was the soft, diffused light that museums cultivate deliberately, kind to everything it touches. He looked at me in it for a long moment. Then he reached out and took my hand. "I want to paint again," he said. I know, I said. I want to paint you. I felt something open in my chest, wide, warm, and unhurried. Okay, I said. He smiled. The real one, the one that reached his eyes, the one I had been carrying around in my memory for 2 years, like a photograph folded too many times. We stayed in that room for a long time. I've thought a lot since then about what I would do differently. The honest answer is almost nothing. Not because I made the right choices, but because I made the only choices I knew how to make with what I understood at the time. I thought love was something you proved by disappearing. I thought protecting someone meant absorbing the cost alone quietly until there was nothing left of you to spend. I was wrong. Love is not a debt to be settled. It is not a sacrifice you make in secret and then carry alone because you decided without asking that the other person couldn't handle the weight. The people who love you are not fragile. They are not investments to be managed or futures to be protected from the very present they're trying to share with you. James never needed me to save him. He needed me to stay. That's the thing I wish someone had told me at 24 standing in front of a check that felt like the only solution. That the bravest thing is not always the one that costs you the most. Sometimes the bravest thing is the one that asks for help, that says, I can't do this alone. That trusts another person with the full weight of the truth. Even when the truth is heavy, even when you're not sure they can carry it, he could have carried it. He would have considered it a privilege. I know that now. And knowing it, I have decided to stay.